Okay. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Conversations with Laura Gleason, team leader, and myself, Kristen Wilson. And we are excited to be wrapping up the final tactic in the Shift book. If you have not got this book or read this book and are just stumbling across our video on YouTube, we highly recommend it for really maneuvering any kind of shift and change in our industry,
Yeah.
right? It's not one specific shift. That's what I love about the tactics in this book, is they're
Yeah.
applicable. And the markets, as we've been talking about, are constantly shifting. So
Right.
strategies, the scripts, the tactics in this book are relevant really for any market, and you can use it and apply it in each market as it shifts. So today, the topic is bulletproof the transaction. Such an important topic, right, Laura?
Yes, absolutely. So they ended this book so well that tactic 12 is basically the last chapter, the last of the 12 tactics. And this chapter is so packed full of such great information. Kristen and I were just saying before we started our live stream that we could teach a class just on this chapter, and may do that coming up soon. And I want to read one thing from the chapter. It kind of sort of recaps the whole book so succinctly. It says, if finding the motivated, getting to the table, and creating urgency, which are previous chapters, represent playing offense in the game of real estate sales, then bulletproofing the transaction is playing defense. So it wraps this whole book up, and says, we've been playing offense until now, and now we're playing defense. It says the first part is the hard, focused work of making connections and achieving agreements. It's heads down. The second part is the wide-eyed, vigilant guardianship of the transaction until it makes it to closing. It's heads up. So forever remember this truth about our profession. We do our deals heads down, but we save our deals heads up. So it's the whole book is about offense and defense. And what I've been saying all along, Kristen, is this whole book is about becoming a professional in real estate and versus an amateur. And when you think offense and defense and you think sports analogies, even if you think playing chess is a sport, there's offense and there's defense. And this chapter, bulletproofing the transaction, is all about playing defense, getting it to the table and getting it to the closing, and all of the important skills that we need to learn to make that happen. Because in a shifting market, our skill sets change, which we've talked about over and over again during these weeks. And if you want to be a true professional in real estate and continue to grow your skills, then you learn how to bulletproof a transaction, because that's part of being a professional. And I would say that in the last 10 years or so, we haven't really had to try very hard to keep very many transactions together for these reasons. There was high buyer demand, low interest rates, low inventory. So you got transactions put together very quickly, and the buyers stayed with it because of low rates, low inventory, or because there was another buyer waiting in the wings. So if one buyer decided it wasn't the right property for them, you had a backup offer, or you immediately got it back into contract with another buyer. And nowadays, I'm sure you're thinking about this as well, Kristen, but last week we interviewed Sherry Gregory, who's one of our top agents, has been an amazing real estate agent for over 20 years. We interviewed her about keeping transactions together. And what I loved about what she said was she never gives up. That for me was always my strategy as well, is how can we turn a no into a yes? Because we may get no's many times. There may be something that looks like a roadblock or a stumbling block in our transactions. And our job as a true professional is to work with both of our buyers and our sellers to see that either there's a roadblock possibly coming, or that we're in the middle of one, and what can we do to get them both back to their motivation for buying and selling, and how can we keep this together so that everybody wins in the end. And so I know what you're going to say. It's all about asking questions, because that is what we've been saying for weeks now, is the better the questions you ask, the better things are going to continue to move forward. So this chapter talks about proactive prevention, talks about early response, which are all about asking great questions. It talks about mortgage issues and bulletproofing issues and solutions. I know in my buyer presentations, I always had a mortgage do's and don'ts part of my presentation, or my packet that I left with the buyer, to make sure that they didn't do something that was going to affect their ability to continue to be underwritten and qualified for the mortgage. Contract to close checklist. Hey, guess what? If you're a professional, you have a contract to close checklist.
Oh, yeah.
And you communicate it to your clients, you share it with them. I think the final thing I would say, and then I'll let you talk, is I try to remind agents of this when I'm teaching and when I'm mentoring agents. Our clients don't do our jobs every single day. We do our jobs every single day. So it might be second skin or second nature to us what we're doing next in the transaction, but it's not second nature to them. So it's our job as a professional to share with them, here's what happens next. Here's what happens next. A lot of times they're nervous because they just simply don't know what's supposed to happen next. And we always talk about real estate agents are a project manager. Well, in a project, when you're managing a project, you're focusing on the next steps and you're explaining those steps. So it's all about how you communicate that with your clients. So packed full on this chapter. If you're reading it for the first time, read it more than once. If you're reading it for more than the second time, reread it, because it's packed full. And it's all about asking great questions, not giving up, and also making sure that your clients know what happens next every step of the way. Those would be my takeaways,
Okay.
Kristen.
Really good. Really good. You know, and to back up to something you said, you know, you mentioned Sherry Gregory from the Gregory Home Team with Place, sharing at our team huddle last week, who's one of the top listing agents in the state, honestly.
Right.
Who sees, you know, a high number of transactions, right? When you do the number of units that Sherry's done in her career, and her experience is so vast. And I thought it was super interesting that she said the main reason for most deals falling apart is broken trust.
Yes. Yep.
That is so powerful. And I looked at this chapter under that lens. And so when I was reading this morning about how Gary divides up two areas, first of all, proactive prevention, and second, early response, and the subheadings or the subcategories under that, those bullet points, that creates trust.
Yeah.
And then when trust is there, you can get that no, right, to a yes much easier, right? At least work into a possibility and then to a yes, because the trust is there. So you got to ask yourself, who's leading this thing? Do you want to lead your clients as a professional fiduciary? Or are you letting them fend for themselves, unaware of so many things?
That's so good.
Who's leading? And in order to have a follower, a leader must instill trust. So we look at that. I love that he talks about outcome framing. You mentioned questions. Outcome framing is basically just asking questions, establishing up front what is the end result we all want, and having clarity around to get to this end result. So we ask the good questions so that we can frame the outcome well, the outcome that your clients want. The second part of that is setting expectations. You know, I read this recently. An expectation not set is a disappointment waiting to happen.
Oh, good quote.
By the way, if you don't set the expectations, trust will be broken. Because here's what you hear. Why don't you tell me that? Now, I love your tip, Laura, about what to expect next, because here's what I want you to know. Guess what, you guys? Your buyer consultation, your seller consultation is not enough expectation setting. I'm sorry. Get used to being on repeat. Set up systems to be repetitive for you and use Laura's tip of what to expect next. Remind them, get repetitive, and say it over and over ad nauseum. And also ask forgiveness. Say, I apologize that I am going to repeat myself. It's not because I don't think you're intelligent. I know that you are. It's because I know there's a lot of information here. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And it's my job to remind you. It's not your job to remember.
Yeah, good. So good.
That's a high level fiduciary.
Mm-hmm.
So we set the expectation, but we remind them that it's an expectation. We re-talk about the expectation each step of the way. Here's what's going to happen next. And here's what the expectations are of this point in the transaction. Then we prepare alternatives. I love this point too. There wasn't one prepare an alternative. It's prepare alternatives.
With S, yeah.
A plan, B plan, C plan, D plan, backup plan, forever plan, right? And reminding them of, because our outcome that we framed to get to this ideal outcome. Here's one of the things that helps me in preparing an alternative, or preparing, is helping the buyer or the seller sit in the other seat for a minute. Just imagine that you were the buyers for a minute.
Yeah, I do it too. Yeah.
Just imagine. Yeah, I think we talked about this on another call.
Yeah.
But this is the place where it's very useful. Imagine you're the buyer looking at a property about to spend over $500,000 and give that $500,000 to someone. What would your expectation be of this inspection report? Right? Just imagine that. And then reassurance. I love this part, following up with reassurance. And in all of this proactive prevention comes the place where Sherry mentioned how we can build trust through empathy. Making sure we're doing it through that empathetic lens. Right? Now, when you read through this chapter again, you're going to get to the part where Gary talks about emotions. In a shifty market, emotions can run high, right? We've seen that. All of us have seen that. In fact, be honest, have they run high in ourselves at times, right? Do we get off that call with that other co-broker or with our client and we're like, ooh, right? Seeing red for a second.
Yeah.
It's our job to actually reduce the emotion. It's our job. Fastest way to do that. Okay. So we have emotional status and we have logic status. The quickest way to reduce emotion in anyone, first of all, is a pattern interrupt, right? So maybe somebody's getting super emotional and going off and you say, hold on one second, Laura. Hey, I have a question for you. Just that interrupt in and of itself reduces emotion. Then you can just say, hey, let's talk about a few steps to take going forward. Second thing, logic brain. When I say the word steps or the path or actions we can take, immediately the logic brain kicks in. Again, emotion reduces. It's a NLP tip, but I'm giving it to you all. Then the flip side works when we want somebody to make a decision, they're staying in logic brain, then we can ask questions to get them into an emotional state, right? But if somebody's in heightened emotional state, the fastest way to reduce the emotional state is to get them logically thinking. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, co-broker, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we're going to talk about some steps forward. We're going to look at the path of actions forward. Immediately their logic brain kicks in.
Yeah.
Emotion reduces. And the other tip I have on that is Lionel always taught me to give breathing room for emotions. Guess what? It's okay to text or leave a voice message and say, hey, we did get the inspection report or the returned addendum or what have you. I'm going to send it over in your email and I have a few, I have minute, time, half an hour, or whatever time you need this afternoon, this evening, or if it's in the evening, tomorrow morning, right? Give space for emotion to breathe. Negotiation in the moment is not it's when you're going to get their most heightened emotional state. So I don't know if you've experienced this, Laura, but we've sent over an addendum and they're they're like emailing right back or texting right back. I can't wait to talk to you about this. This is ridiculous. They're all flared up. By the time we get to the actual conversation, they're ready to do anything.
Yeah.
You know,
I always say most problems solve themselves with a good night's sleep. Just some time.
Absolutely. 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 So, you know, these are just some strategies that we learn over time. Great resource in this chapter. We cannot recommend it enough. Obviously, we've said that. I don't know. This is one of my favorite chapters.
Oh, it's such a good book, period, too.
Yeah. So we look forward to moving forward now with our leadership conversations. We have a treat for you. We'll kick off next week. And we're grateful that you're with us on this journey.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're enjoying this conversation either way.
Exactly. I've learned something every single time talking to you. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much, Laura. All right, everybody, happy Wednesday.